Cool. I think who hasn't spoken? Noodle, Brian. How'd y'all hear about the course?
I just gave my short introduction. I said I heard about the course
Oh,
because of Robert's blog.
I'm sorry. I thought I saw Escaping the Matrix highlighted. My bad.
No, don't worry about it.
Cool. Escaping the Matrix. Anybody else? How did y'all hear about it? We'll just do some quick intros after this and then get started. I just want to hear about everyone's journey.
No, I'm just tied into Kid Labs and stuff that they do there. So I heard about it through Robert and Zach.
Nice. Anybody else?
Hello, this is Aldrin. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, I just know from Kit Labs. I've been working with Robert and Brian in other projects. I've been busy lately, but I want to chime in and see what's going on with security audits, smart contracts, Web3. Be part of this new community.
Cool. Love it. Love it. Thanks for joining in.
Yeah,
Anybody
for
else?
everyone. Oh, IK. Yeah, IK. We're just going around introducing and how we found this course. Oh, I think is your mic working?
Can everyone hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I'm part of Kit Labs and Solidity ATL, so that's how I found out about the group.
And that's Tremaine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to ride my bike and listen to.
Oh, okay. Nice. And then IK, I think you were the last one to join.
Yeah. So, I've been interested in the kind of the Web3 space and this blockchain in general for a while. I've been speaking to Robert about this subject for a while, so I just want to kind of pop in and see what y'all had to offer.
Go.
And can everyone see the link I sent in the chat? That's just a link to a Notion doc that has all the information we're going to go over today. Just want to make sure y'all have access to it.
Yeah, I took a look at it.
Okay,
Me too. It worked.
cool. Yeah, Miles, you think we can go ahead and get started?
Yeah, no, we're ready to go ahead and jump in. I guess for us, we should go ahead and do our intros and give a background about ourselves, and then we can kind of go through the course and talk about what it's going to look like for the next 6 weeks. So, howdy, everybody. My name is Miles. I also go by Wizard Kelly on Twitter, and I'm a Web3 security auditor currently. Something that's interesting is I did not come from a technical background. I actually started in the business space. I got my degree in information systems, so it's kind of business, kind of tech. It's like the merge between the two. But I came out of school working in consulting and doing mainly business. And it wasn't up until about 2 years ago that I transitioned my career into Web2 security. So I became a security analyst and was doing some fun stuff on that side of the house. And then Web3 security popped into my peer view, and I've never looked back since. So I jumped into the space with no knowledge on really like smart contracts at all. I understood smart contracts, but I wasn't good at like developing or working with them. And I just started from square one of learning, how transactions work, how transactions are not supposed to work, how contract state is supposed to be changed, and all that good stuff to the point where I became an auditor. And so that's what I do now on my day to day. I literally read code all day and try to break it. So that's my short intro on myself.
Cool. I give a little intro on myself. So my name's Robert from Atlanta as well. My Twitter handle is boring. It's just me. I've been a software engineer for 7 years. And I've been in Web3 space as an engineer for about a year and a half. My journey into Web3 security was initially I was interested in just using Solidity as a building tool as a developer. And then once I started working in Web3, the company I worked for, people would submit bounties, and then I would see how much we would pay out for the bounties. I was like, whoa, what is this? And then I started looking into like security aspects of Solidity, and I had never thought of application security before. So I just started taking a deep dive. And so I've been an independent security researcher for about 7 months now. And yeah, that's my journey that led here.
Ooh. Anybody have any questions, I guess, before we jump in on just our background, any other things you want to know about us before we start working through this content? Hey, Cabbage. Thanks for joining in.
Sorry, cut
You're
you
good.
off there.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious about like this community and kind of how long these meetups have been happening and what I don't know, just kind of what topics do you like to talk about here on the Discord and yeah, about the group at large.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
yes, we can hear you.
Has anybody used ChatGPT or does anybody use that service?
All the time, man. All the time, every single day.
Got to know it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I kind of built my own framework. I don't even know. I can't say I know how to test it and stuff. So that's what I'm getting into. But I kind of got my own framework with Python and Ruby. It actually runs off JavaScript.
It's like a integration with ChatGPT.
Well, I mean, not that serious. I ain't really got into actually using it as an API service. Now, that is more of the prompt engineering, but I'm just saying, like, from a outside perspective.
All right, can I catch you?
I'm saying, like, I'm just trying to create my own. I can't say user space. I don't even know what API actually building is. So I mean, I'm sorry if I'm not trying to interrupt.
Yeah, I just wanted to I guess mention that this session is just supposed to be an info session to talk about the course. So
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get off topic. I'm just saying, like, I've talked to other businesses and they said they ain't heard of it before. So that's all I was asking.
Yeah, that's cool. We can sideline this into the chat, and we can honestly visit some of this stuff later. But for now, we're just gonna go over course content, do intros, and just talk about the next 6 weeks out. But definitely keep that noted. We will definitely cover stuff like this and can talk about this in our chat. Cool. So, anybody have any questions related to just our background? Our experience in the space. I think you said, yeah, just kind of coming back to it.
Just a quick overall high-level question. What is the main goal for this session as you as trainers, or how you want to get more into this space, and what are the things that we're gonna learn or improve in this course?
A great segue.
Yeah, great segue. I can share my screen just to so that we're all looking at the Notion page, and then we can just start going through that. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So this document's meant to be a syllabus, essentially. So the idea is you can come here, read through it, and have an understanding of what the course is, what we're asking of you as students, and then the outcomes we're looking for this course. So I was thinking we could start with just like high level, what the course will look like, and then talk about like the specific times and dates, and then we could go through the content of each session. And as questions come up, just have time for people to have questions to be answered, and just to understand what's going on in this course. Miles, do you think that's a good plan?
Yep. Yeah, we can go ahead and start working through it.
Cool.
So essentially what we're trying to do is have a 3 to 12 hour, 3 to 12 week course. I know we're gonna have things kind of spread out, but the idea is we're gonna have 6 sessions total, and we're gonna try to host a session every Saturday morning ish. We're thinking 11 or 12, and the idea is each session we're gonna do like an intro to some topic, and we're gonna go into this in a second, but just giving the high level boilerplate of what this looks like. Every Saturday, we're going to have a key session where we're going to kind of study something, go through this topic we want to teach, and then we're going to assign some type of homework, something to work on throughout the week, and that'll be like your weekly assignment. It can be discussion point, it can be discussions, it could be CTFs, the whole nine. And then essentially in the next following week, we're going to review it with everyone, and then also go into the next piece of the course or next piece of the content that we have for y'all. And the idea is after we do this, we want to take everyone at least from a level of understanding what security auditing is to the point where they can actually go in and go off on themselves and be bounty hunters. Not to say like, at the end of the 6 weeks, you're going to be able to find your $1 million bug. That could potentially happen, but the idea is that at the end of these 6 weeks, you will have the framework to be able to know how to search for bugs, how to hunt, how to study, and then how to either get a job at an auditing company or just be a bug hunter on your own. So that's kind of like just a boilerplate of what this course looks like. And at the end of it also is we want to do a CTF, sorry, not CTF, but do a bounty together. So the idea is by the end of this, all of us should be able to split off into a few groups and then actually go and participate in a Code 4 Arena or Sherlock contest. And then if anyone doesn't know what that is, we'll get into this later. But the idea is we'll participate in a bounty contest together and see if we can win prizes. And that's kind of like our capstone to see how we did over the duration of the course.
And one thing I do want to touch on is a lot of people have been asking about community. So one of the things at Kit Labs that we try and do in general is have a community of engineers to like learn and build things together. So we've worked on hackathons in the past. Or last year we did a Chainlink hackathon. So this type of audit contest is something we're trying to have a group of people who do regularly. So this also isn't just like a one-off, like, okay, now go completely learn your own. It's, hey, we might do another audit contest in 2 or 3 months. So come join us.
Yeah. So I think we can go and jump down into. Oh, anybody have a question from the high level overview?
From the business perspective, what are the needs in the Web3 and blockchain business on security audits? How high is the demand that you guys are putting the effort on this?
That's a good question. So I think like a good way to answer it is, at least for me, the demand is so high. I'm willing to do this course for free because it like teaching also helps us improve. And there's so much opportunity that just like teaching that skill to other people is very valuable because the demand for audits right now, like there's not enough supply. So that's whenever you look at the I guess salaries or payouts of bug bounties, it's because there's not that many people who have the skill. So I see over time the demand for the skill growing. Yeah, Miles, I guess you could add your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So honestly, this is the reason why, I mean, I have the business background, so this is the reason why I actually transitioned more from Web 2 security to Web 3 security. So I don't know if most of you all know this, but there's a huge shortage in Web 2 security alone. Like, if you were to go out and take a certification and work to try to get a job, you can find a job almost ASAP, no matter what the market conditions are, is because the supply of security experts is just not meeting the demand. Now, if you jump into Web3, that changes even more. Like it's such a small community of security people in the Web3 space that at this point, like you can go anywhere and try to work for an audit shop or become a bounty hunter or just get payouts. Like that's just the the disparity in between the two of supply and demand. So yeah, that's the reason why we're doing it. Is one, it's really a great learning experience for us to go through stuff and learn with you all as we teach this. But at the same time, it's that's what the Web3 security community is about. It's all about open decentralization, making sure things are free and open to everyone, and having the ability to learn these things when you may not be able to in another area. So I think it's important. I'm thankful that Robert started this community, when he did, and now I'm a part of it. And so it's just a great place to have to where we can teach people what we're learning. And yeah, it just gets passed back downhill. The hopes is after this, you all can learn this kind of stuff and then teach your friends, teach someone else about it. So yeah, that's the purpose and I guess the business reason.
Thank you.
Of course. So we have a question, and then we can take this last one and go into the course. So
I
when
have
you
one
can,
question.
oh, go ahead.
So was your degree being in information technology, did you go back and get a certification in security?
I did go back and get a certification in my Security Plus to get into the Web2 security space. Yes, but that's not needed for Web3 security.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, perfect. And then one more. Sorry, Robert. We'll go through this one real quick. So when you consider how much money you can make, when you consider how much money can move through these smart contracts, it makes sense why companies will pay so much to secure the contract. Yes, yeah, that's a great point. That's another thing too, is a lot of money is in this space, and so yeah, securing this will bring in a lot of funds. So, but okay, let's go ahead and jump through these sessions and just give a high level overview of these.
Yeah. Oh, I think one thing that I don't know if we mentioned is outside of the sessions, we're also going to be having study halls here in Discord. And that's just like a place to come ask questions if you're stuck. And we may also be working on other things. So just wanted to make sure that y'all aware of that too. Cool. So yeah, I guess we can go through the first session. Sorry, cut you off, Miles.
No, you're good. See, I guess we can just kind of tag team this. I'll do the first, and then we go from there. So, so session one, we're going to really do an intro into Web3 security. So, Web3 careers, the value that auditors bring to the space, and then also kind of having a intro into thinking like a hacker. This is something that's an interesting point of view when people come from different industries and different areas, is to learn how to think like an attacker. So really this session is going to maybe a little bit shorter because it's going to be more of an intro. We're going to give you all some pre-work to do. It's a presentation, so don't think it's going to be too much. But we're going to send you all a link to a presentation I gave for our Solidity ATL meetups that talked through a lot of the security process. So that'll be the first week. And then what we will also do is introduce the first assignments. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we get into the first week, honestly, because we know that people have different backgrounds. But the idea is, if you are from a development background and you're comfortable jumping right into the weeds of Solidity, then we're going to assign the first two CTFs of Ethernaut. Now, if we have anyone who's newer into the space, then we're going to kind of take a different approach and work with some intro to Solidity. So that's going to be Crypto Zombies, and there's a course online that actually does a lot of the intro to basics of Solidity. So basically, that's kind of what we're going to work with as the first few assignments. But that's how session one is going to look. We'll talk more about it, obviously, when we get into session one. But that's just a high-level overview of what that first course will look like. Robert, anything I missed on that one?
Yeah, and I guess the expectation I want to set for the material discourse. So all of the pre-work is going to be up and available on KitLab's website. So if you just make sure, if you're interested in signing up, you can join the space here, and there's a section for all the course material. So that's where all of the actual details of the course are going to be. Yeah. Cool. I guess I could go through the second session. So like from the second session on, we're gonna also start introducing another topic that we're going to talk about. So we're still going to have like specific topics for the session, but then we're also going to start introducing a part of security audit and research where you're learning specific attack vectors. So that second session, we're going to talk about how to become an auditor, provide some resources around that to help you like self-educate and emphasize some of our practices of how we've been successful with it and what we've seen others. We're going to introduce what an audit report is. We're not going to go super deep into audit reports in this session. That's going to be a later session. And then we're going to introduce what attack vectors are and like what does that actually look like to try and hack something. And that's where we're going to start introducing specific attacks. And then this session as well, we're going to review some of the capture the flag from the previous session. And this portion of these presentations is going to be interactive. So we're going to be asking, students to walk through the CTFs or the solutions or explain different things about that. Yeah.
Cool. And so jumping into session 3, this is when we're gonna get our feet wet a little bit more. So we're gonna talk through some tooling, talk about Remix, VS Code, Hard Hat, and then also using, we talked about this just a second ago, is using ChatGPT as a auditor's assistant. So we'll talk through some tools you can use, and also forgot about Solidity. That's basically a repository of a bunch of audit reports. So we're going to kind of talk through how an auditor would use these tools, because tools are really useful for you whenever you're performing your job and anything you do. And if you have those right tools, you can really fly. So we're going to talk through that. And then we're going to walk through the previous CTF and Hard Hat. So when we get to it, we'll talk more about it, but basically there's multiple ways you can do the CTFs, and we're going to talk about doing these CTFs with these tools that we've introduced. And then also we're going to talk about spinning up local nodes and doing your testing that way. There's a bunch of things we're going to cover in this session where we're just going to really talk about tooling. How does an auditor's process look like in terms of using these tools? And then, like Robert said, we're going to have this one part of the session where we're going to have like student spotlights and more. It's going to be more interactive, where we'll talk through one of the CTFs, and then maybe also talk through like a really useful vulnerability that comes up in a lot of reports. So that's what session 3 looks like. Before we can, oh, you go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Go ahead, because I'm gonna just ask a quick question break in between.
Yeah. So I guess one thing I just wanted to point out is a lot of these sessions, we have a GitHub repository as well. So a lot of this information will also be, GitHub repositories where you'll be able to access the code, see what it's like, pull it down locally, and play around with it. So these sessions aren't just us talking through the topics, but we're going to be showing them as well.
Yeah. Before we continue, any questions on just those first 3 sessions? We're about halfway through.
Yeah. Quick question about tooling. Will we be getting familiar with Foundry?
Oh, that's a good question.
Good question. Yeah.
So if I knew Foundry very well, I would be comfortable doing that. But I'm still learning Foundry myself. So that's something we can talk about, because I definitely want to learn it more. But we weren't going to have any Foundry initially.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I think to also answer that is when we have our study halls, this would be something good to work through. Like say all the assignments are done for the week. We have the 2 CTFs complete. We know Solidity. We're good. We can work through that together. That's what this community is for, is also learning new stuff together, and how do we teach each other how to get better. So If we want to use a study session or part of study hall to just walk through it, ask students come in and ask questions and hop out, we can definitely do that. That time is dedicated for you all and for us to learn something. So I say while it's not a part of the actual sessions, it can be a part of our study halls together.
Cool.
Cool. Were there any other questions?
To participate, do I need anything other than my laptop and an internet connection?
Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Thank you.
And we're also going to be recording these sessions. So if you want to participate but can't make every one of them, we'll still have those recordings. Cool. So I guess I can go through the fourth session. So this fourth session is where we're going to start really getting into the weeds of the audit process and what it looks like. And so we thought one of the best ways to do that is just spend the first 30 minutes where we just do an audit, show what that process looks like. And then after that, we're going to go through the audit report for that specific protocol and just start highlighting, some of the things we might have found ourselves or thought about, and then starting that habit of reading audit reports. And then I think, that'll also be a good place to start talking about the difference between public audit contests and private audits. And then there's another vulnerability we're going to go through and also review the previous CTFs.
Yeah, nice. And then for session 5, we are going to so pretty much after this point, we're pretty much almost ready to start doing audits together. And this is where we're going to talk about very recent attacks, things that have gotten people, bounties in the past few weeks. And so we're really going to dig into, ERC-20, talking through some of the weird cases that occur with them. And this is really a great start because this is where you can start finding like those low and medium severity findings, and sometimes high, by simple checks from this right here. So we'll talk through that, and then we're also going to basically start walking through an audit report where we kind of see this ERC-20 like types of exploits. And from this point on, we'll do the same thing where we'll review our CTF again, also maybe review some vulnerabilities. We'll probably do a lot of report-based stuff in this session. And from this point on out, this is when it's time for us to rock and roll with bounties. So after this is where we're talked about with the hopes of after these 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks, everyone will be comfortable enough to understand the bounty process, the auditing process, and can start hitting the ground running into trying to find bugs. And so from here, we will, depending on how many we have, we'll try to split up in teams of 3 and sign up for a bounty contest and see if we can make some money. So that'll be a cool way to learn. I'll go ahead and tell you all like some of my bounty contests that I got into. It was tough finding stuff, and I still think it's tough now in comparison to auditing. But what I will say is it has definitely upped my security skills and my auditing game. And no matter what the payout is, you learn a ton from bounty contests. So it'll be a great activity for us. We'll get closer as we do it, start to learn each other more, but also start to learn security a little bit better. And from there, we'll be able to work together on hackathons, other bounties, and the whole 9. Robert, did I miss anything on the last part?
No, I think, yeah, you mentioned everything. And then the reason we don't have a specific date for the contest yet is usually they pop up like a week before, or like there's not much heads up on when they happen, but they pretty consistently happen like multiple times a month. So we're pretty confident that sometime at the end of May there'll be a contest where we compete in for like 3 to 4 days.
Yeah.
I guess I could talk about I've competed in a couple contests. And for me, it actually has helped me become a better developer. Just because I didn't have that attack mentality before when I was building things. And so trying to attack contracts and then going back to building things makes me a lot more aware of like what people might do to my code. So it's really helped me just be more security aware as a developer. Yeah.
Hey,
What's
I have a question.
yeah.
In these contests, is it like actual contracts that people might deploy in the future, and we're looking for the bugs, or are there like intentionally bugs for the participants to discover?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
Go
You can
ahead.
go ahead, Miles.
So yeah, no, these contests are people who are protocols or projects who are about to deploy their code live, and they're having security auditors. They basically open source this ability so that security auditors can come in, look at their code, and find these bounties and get payouts. So yes, this is definitely going to be live code. It's definitely going to be helping the ecosystem and making sure we prevent hackers from doing these attacks. So that answers the first question. And not to not to scare you all, but on the second question, there actually are a few developers I found out recently that do intentionally place some bugs in bounty contests to see if the quality of the code audit was good. This is something that people will actually do for auditors themselves to see if, you paid a certain amount for an auditor to come audit your report and they don't find something you intentionally placed. You can kind of check mark and see if that was a good or bad quality audit. So sometimes they do plant like easy give me bugs in audit contests just to see if auditors actually like were working and paid attention. But for the most part, it's all bugs that are in the wild, and it's pre-deployment. So
That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah. I have a question. What kind of protocols are you guys targeting? And also, can you guys like walk me through like the process? Not walk me through like in a sense, which process do you think is the toughest to go through? Reading through the documentation, actually writing the documentation, or just like playing around with the code base?
I think I could answer the first one, and then Miles, I think you might have more context on the second one. So I think the first question was on what protocols we're looking for. So I think we're looking for a smaller audits. So a lot of these audit contests, the prize pools varies depending on the protocol. So on the low end, it'll be like, $10,000 or $15,000 total pool for all participants. And on the high end, that could be like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we're looking for a smaller audit that has like not too many lines of code, just to make it a little bit easier to digest. Because some audits you might have like 3 smart contracts, and others there might be 50. So we're definitely trying to get on the smaller side. In terms of the like hardest part, I think that might depend on the auditor, but I'm curious on your thoughts on that one, Miles.
yeah. Let's see. I think one of the toughest parts about auditing is honestly the understanding of the protocol itself. So a lot of the bugs that people find, it may not just be like a technical bug, like, hey, you missed this one character in your code. It could be the logic of the code just doesn't work how it's intended. So I think the one thing that I actually appreciate doing is reading the documentation thoroughly, because you may have some auditors who jump straight in, and that may work for them. Like, it really, we're going to talk about this, but that may work for them. But for me, I have to first get an understanding of the high level overview of the protocol, how it works, and the documentation helps me with that. And then from there, I'm able to start going down the auditing process, which we'll go into later in the course. But I say that's the toughest part, is, reading the documentation and understanding those just interesting and complex things about this protocol and the way a developer created this thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that, because
Cool.
for me as well, like just understanding like the words they're using, because a lot of these protocols might be DeFi, and so they're finance terms, and like Google is just always open. Like when I'm first getting into a code base, I'm like, I don't know what this word means, what this means. And usually like the first like portion of time, like 10 or 20% of the audit is just like reading documentation and reading the code to like literally understand what they're trying to do. And yeah, I think that approach, like, and we'll talk about this later, but I think that approach helps find the higher vulnerability bugs, because a large portion of the bugs in contracts are code just not behaving the way it's intended. Because like in normal software development, like bugs are everywhere, and smart contracts are code, so there's bugs everywhere, like logical bugs, and just understanding like what they're trying to do is a lot of the work.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a small question, and I'm sorry if I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm curious, how involved are the original authors of the smart contract when we're doing maybe like a private audit? And like, can you kind of detail the relationship between the auditor and the developer throughout the process?
That's a good question. We'll definitely talk about this one more, but I think we can still cover it, because this is all a part of the Q&A part of, like, what are we supposed to expect? So any question you have is welcome. So I personally, and this is another one where we'll talk about every auditor's process, but typically in an audit or bug bounty contest, you have access to the developers. So for instance, like, we have this Discord. Usually the developers will be in a Discord channel, and you can throw off questions at them. And then also you can DM them privately if there's something, that you don't want, obviously, the other auditors to know about. You can kind of ask more specific and focused questions. So you can usually have access to them 24/7. Now that just depends on the developers of the protocol. In my experience on Sherlock and Code for Arena, the developers are very responsive, and if you DM them, they usually always respond. So that's the preferred way. There are some people who don't like the communication between the developers, and they kind of just want their own bubble and to look at the code from their point of view. But yeah, I typically take the approach of the first option, which is asking them a bunch of questions and trying to figure out this code, because they are the most intimate with this code, so they know the most about it.
And maybe that's a follow-up question. Like when it comes to you mentioned that there are different types of audits, right? The audits where it's more behavioral issues and not really technical. How do you go about, I guess, convincing the dev that it is a behavior and not like, some devs may have an ego in terms of like they think how it is correct. So how does that kind of negotiation work?
So when the developer has an issue, like when a developer doesn't agree with you, and you have to kind of
Right.
yeah. That's a good one, because usually, so technical type of ones, you can spin up most of them, it's you can spin up a test. And this is the part where I'm trying to get better in my career, is I have had developers argue me, and it's like, shoot, I have to go back and forth, back and forth. But the thing that can stop an argument is send them the code and send them a test of the exploit. Don't do it live, but we're going to talk about sending proof of concept, which is where you create code that exploits the contract in a local environment. And so when you send them that, the argument stops. It's just like, here, the contract shows this, the balance is drained. There's no arguing that. So that's kind of where you have to, that yeah, that typically is what happens when you get to that stage of like debating with the developers.
And I think one thing on the public contest is both Code Farina and Sherlock have the concept of like senior auditors. So these are auditors who've participated in past audits, and they're kind of the lead auditors who are like responsible for the final report, and they help validate all the bugs. So if there's ever discrepancies, usually the senior is the person who resolves that and like just helps like get clarity.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course, and we're coming up on time, so I guess we'll take uh 2 more questions. We'll also have our chat channel. Like you can reach us anytime. That's the benefit of this is you're free to ask us all the questions you want. But yeah, just in the interest of time, I want to be mindful. So I know people may have some other meetings after this. Any last few questions?
I have a question. Could it be possible that there are automated security audits already, or this is just new that we're building libraries of all vulnerabilities or type of attacks that all of a sudden this will be automated?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there was actually a research paper that got released like a month ago that was breaking down the vulnerabilities of I think it was all of Code Farina and Sherlock. So this was like maybe 3 or 4 dozen audit contests. It was hundreds of vulnerabilities, and there are AI tools and automated tools for auditing. But this research paper was showing that those automated tools caught like 15% of the total audits. So it's still very much needed. And of course, like tools will evolve over time, but it's still similar to like Web2 security. I imagine like there's been a lot of time in Web2 security for lots of tools, AI tools, but there's still a lot of things that need a specialized person to do. Let me see if I can find that report.
Yeah, I was curious about that too because like Microsoft has integrated their AI technology into 365, especially with VS. So where now you can actually have a conversation with it. You can probably tell it to look for potential bugs in code.
Let me find.
I'm not very savvy and wise on blockchain and all the different DeFi protocols, but I think the holistic view of security might go from the code level to the financial level, I guess. It could be a great code, but they can exploit the code by doing, I don't know, a flash loan or something like that.
Very true. Yeah, those are very prominent attacks, and that's the like the next level I feel like of security auditing is, when people have that high level understanding where they even know the math and the finance to a T, where they don't have to exploit the code at all. It's just the logic of, yeah, using a flash loan, buying these yield tokens, depositing them here, taking these out, what will happen to it? That is definitely like the next tier level, and what, a lot of sophisticated attackers can do.
Hey guys, thanks for
Hey,
all that.
of course, of course.
I had to deal with my daughter for a lot of it, but I heard most of it. One comment on Alden's point, like there's different buckets in DeFi security, right? There's technical exploits, economic exploits, and governance exploits. So technical is sort of what we've been talking about, but your code could be perfect, just like Robert said, and you still get, this happened a lot actually. They go through lots of audits, the code is fine, protocol works as intended and gets exploited anyways, because there's an economic exploit, right? Just like Miles was saying, there's a flash loan, they manipulate the price of the asset, pump it up, take a big loan against it, and dump the price. There's all sorts of things that can be done with working code. So like that's what happens with DeFi, unfortunately. And so like you can get really good at spotting the technical stuff, but there's still lots of room for understanding, just like what Robert was saying, you have to really dig into what is the protocol trying to do. And depending on how good their documentation is too, it can take a long time to sort of even figure out what they're trying to do in the first place, right? So it makes a lot of sense that a lot of time is spent just trying to figure out what are these people trying to do, and then, okay, are they doing it right? And what are some of the economic attack vectors that could be exploited here, even using their code, assuming it works right. So I'm interested in that side of it a lot too. And being in DeFi for a while, I've been the victim of plenty, and I've read about plenty and seen plenty of them. So the economic ones are insidious. Those are tough ones to see. My one question I had though was, are you going to be recording the classes on Saturdays? Because like this weekend's Easter, we got an Easter thing that Saturday, but I won't be able to make it. Other ones I should be able to though.
Yeah, we'll be recording the sessions. I think another thing I want to touch on that line of thought you were going on, another line of attack that is sometimes not thought about is just social engineering or malicious actors. So there's attacks where people like take over Discord or take over a Twitter account and put a malicious link. There's also attacks where the people who built the protocol are malicious and are like building backdoors. So that's also where the auditors come in to like look for things like that. Like, oh, we noticed that you have this role on like your mint function, or you have this role in your withdraw function that you can take everything. So there's a bunch of different attack vectors to be aware of. Yeah, that's a perfect example of a like a black hat behavior.
Another quick question: how do you deal with like time management when you're like doing your research?
Yeah, it's a good question. Oh, Miles, I don't know how much, what time, if we're at a time limit.
Yeah, no, we're good. I guess I'll just set the stage and say like, hey, if you want to drop this, you're more than welcome to. I can stay on. I love talking about this kind of stuff, and usually I think at the end of the sessions we'll stay on and answer questions. This is fun. So, but yeah, for anybody who's like, hey, I gotta go do this, I gotta go, pick up the kids, whatever it is. Like we will not be upset with you. It's all good. So okay, let's go back to the question. Is you said time management? And are you referring to time management in terms of the audit, or time management in terms of like the day-to-day life of security auditing? Just goals. What are your what is that referring to?
In terms of looking at a contest, let's say you have 4 days to go through the audit. How would you go about looking at the docs?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And this is something that you learn a lot at an audit shop of like, how do you manage your time while you're doing these audits? So first thing I like to do is, it depends on the time. So like you said, a 4-day contest, the first day is solely for me to get understanding. I try to not touch anything. I try not to, test anything. I solely focus on documentation and reading it thoroughly. And usually that could take, however long you have of doing audit contests, but that is usually like the 10% of your time, because after that, after you read the docs and you have a very solid understanding, you can run with the code and look at everything and kind of know what's going on. So so typically first day is solely documentation. The next 2 days is and we'll go more in detail about this, but the next 2 days is forming, your attack threads, and we'll talk about this, but we'll form attack threads, attack vectors for 2 days, and then near that last day, that's when I start taking the highest potential vulnerabilities that I have in my attack threads and start specifically focusing on them throughout the rest of the duration. So yeah, you want to make sure you manage your time wisely and have like your 4 or 5 types of attacks. And then when you do find one attack, you focus solely on that one, because you might get caught up in code. You may start paying attention to other things and you may miss those vulnerabilities. And to find those interesting and unique bugs, you have to be willing to like dig deep on one thread for like hours on end. So That's like day 3 and day 4 leading up to the wrapping up of the contest. That's my process. We'll talk about it, see what's comfortable for everybody else, but that's usually my time management strategy when I'm dealing with bounties and also when I deal with clients.
Thank you. Thanks.
I have one more question, if you allow me to.
Mm-hmm.
In the process of developing code for any given service, where is in the process the security audit? Sometimes companies are in a rush and they do a lot of developing. They spend most of the time doing development.
Mm-hmm.
Then the security audit is almost at the end. You only have like, I don't know, 1 week or 3 hours. So how that fits into this Web3 development environment?
That's a good question, and honestly, it's a very highly debated topic. So, so my stance on this is, we need to start adapting to the Web2 development environment. So, in Web2, you have like the CI/CD pipeline, the continuous integration, continuous development pipeline, and usually you have security people plugged in at the beginning. So, in terms of someone about to build the protocol, you have security experts who are talking about, the potential vulnerabilities you could create, and all the way throughout the stages of development. And so in the Web3 space, we're not very mature. We are at the stage where right before deployment, developers say, let's get an audit and ship it off. That's starting to change. We see a lot of more developers focusing on security, which is a plus for us. And they're doing things like bounty contests. They're doing things like getting multiple audits from different auditors. They're also doing things like getting new audits after an update. So that's another important thing is, if you update code, you want to make sure you get new audits rolling as you update things. So I say that's changing from the, just get an audit and it's a last minute time rubber stamp to the point where it's actually people are taking it seriously. And as, the government gets involved, as more and more businesses like Visa and all these different places are getting involved, security is starting to become more of a forethought. Did I answer the question? I don't know if I.
I'm just going from a different technology experience. I want to see how that works on the Web3 development and blockchain transactions.
Yeah. Cool. Any final questions, y'all? I think looks like people are dropping out. I think we got a good overview, a good kickoff.
What is ZK? No, ZK is NARCs. What is that related to security, or is it just protecting transactions?
Yes, no, this is a good one. So zero knowledge, ZK snarks, zero knowledge proofs. This is basically a whole nother layer of adding onto blockchain of basically people able to interact with things or make transactions without knowing who they are. And so this is gonna get into a really good phase of like privacy and anonymity. And so that's what that technology is centered around. Some cool stuff. We probably won't do any sessions on it. But in our study sessions on Thursdays, we can definitely dig into it if you're willing to learn about it.
I was just curious if that's part of the security audit. So I was just curious.
Yeah, it can be. There's protocols as ZK starts to become more popular. More protocols are implementing ZK stuff, and yeah, that like we're gonna need to audit that at some point. So.
Okay. All right. No more questions from me. Thank you, man.
All good. Thanks y'all for joining. I'm gonna go ahead and hop off, everyone. I appreciate everyone for joining in. I look forward to seeing y'all in our first session.
All right. Thank you.
Of course.
Later, guys.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye. Yes, the recording will be posted.